The LG G8s ThinQ is a relatively affordable flagship-class smartphone that boasts of an IP68 rating for water and dust resistance. It isn't going to win any specifications wars today, but LG is hoping to make up for that with innovative features such as Hand ID and Motion Air gestures. Will that be enough to win over buyers who are potentially looking at OnePlus, Samsung or Apple smartphones at this price level? Let's find out. Before we get started, please do remember to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already and hit the bell icon so you're notified whenever we post a new video. Let's start with the positives. The build quality of the LG G8s ThinQ is pretty good. This phone is available only in a mirror black finish. The rear is effectively a mirror and it does look very slick and premium at first glance. However, it's impossible to use this phone without smudging it and fingerprints are picked up instantly. LG says there's Gorilla Glass 6 on the rear and Gorilla Glass 5 on the front, which is reassuring. It has an IP68 rating for water and dust resistance and is rated for resilience against shock. Many people will be happy to see that the LG G8s ThinQ does have a 3.5mm analog audio socket, making it a rarity in the premium smartphone space. We quite like the display on the G8s ThinQ, aside from the notch that is. It's very crisp and vibrant, and we didn't really miss HDR level brightness. Games and videos were both pleasant. This phone has an always-on display which is genuinely useful. You can have multiple colors and select whether you want music controls, a calendar, or even a picture to be displayed. You get stereo sound through the speaker at the bottom in conjunction with the earpiece, and it's relatively loud and clean sounding. Speaking of the earpiece, the off-center location took a little getting used to but didn't really make a difference in day-to-day use since it's loud enough no matter how you hold this phone. The off-center earpiece was probably necessary in order to accommodate a front camera as well as a time-of-flight 3D sensor and infrared illuminator, but it's hardly an elegant solution. Let's talk about performance. The smartphone ships with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 SoC coupled with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. This chip is powerful enough to handle any current app or game, and there's loads of RAM. I found that apps stayed ready to spring into action and everything that you'd expect in a premium Android smartphone worked as it should. I spent some time playing PUBG Mobile, which ran at its high quality preset, and Asphalt 9 Legends. Both games were smooth and enjoyable. The phone has a 12MP f1.8 primary rear camera with a 13MP f2.4 wide-angle camera and a 12MP f2.6 telephoto camera at the back. The LG G8s ThinQ was great at reproducing fine detail and vibrant color. Exposures were spot on and even complex scenes were captured well. Focus was just a little off sometimes, but you'd only notice that on very close examination. Portrait mode doesn't work on non-human subjects. For portraits of people, edge detection was pretty much perfect and blur intensity can be adjusted after taking shots. Even without portrait mode, close-up shots of flowers and objects had nice-looking natural depth. At night, the LG G8s ThinQ uses digital zoom through its primary camera rather than the actual telephoto camera, and there's no indication of this to the user. The phone also seems to take a while to capture shots which turn out very bright but potentially blurry. I was particularly impressed by how this phone rendered frames with points of light against dark backgrounds. Video recorded using the primary camera is stabilized at 1080p as well as 4K. The quality of video overall is very good both in the daytime and at night. The front camera has an 8MP resolution and f1.9 aperture. Portraits benefit from the time-of-flight 3D sensor. Portrait as well as standard selfies were quite good. Now let's talk about what I don't like about this phone. The LG G8s ThinQ's design could almost be considered dated, with rather chunky borders around the screen and an enormous wide notch. While a capacitive fingerprint sensor is another slightly dated feature on this phone, it's actually very conveniently within reach. However, the power button is placed right at the top of the right side and requires quite a stretch. To make matters worse, it's stiff and takes a bit of effort to press. This phone has a hybrid dual SIM tray which will disappoint some people. My biggest problem with the LG G8s ThinQ is its software. To say that the UI is customized would be a massive understatement. LG has put its own stamp on pretty much everything to the extent that it doesn't feel much like Android at all. LG ships this phone with Android 9 and I was surprised to see the July 2019 security patch on our unit with no available update. One of this phone's highlight features is its air gestures, which use the front camera and sensors to detect waves and pinches in the air. You're supposed to be able to launch apps from the home screen, capture screenshots, control music playback, and dismiss calls or alarms. Unfortunately, it's practically useless as it only worked once every 20 or so attempts. Similarly, Hand ID claims to let you simply show your palm to the front camera in order to unlock the phone. This is not very secure or convenient to use and defeats the purpose of using biometric authentication. I found it frustrating to line up my palm just right. Face recognition on the G8s ThinQ was also a bit slow, but LG claims better security with its time-of-flight sensor than most Android phones deliver with just a camera. Overall, LG's software comes across as overstuffed and fatiguing. It reminds me of mobile phones from nearly a decade ago when companies tried to differentiate themselves with all sorts of distractions and gimmicks. Finally, the G8s ThinQ's battery life is also good but not great. Our HD video loop test ran for 11 hours 51 minutes, which was disappointing. Real-world usage was more favorable and I easily got through a full day with about 20% left at night. Charging is also not especially quick. We got up to 15% in 12 minutes and 69% in an hour. LG's entire approach with the G8s ThinQ is woefully out of date. It isn't a bad phone for its price, but there are other far more polished options out there, including the OnePlus 7T and the lower-priced Asus 6Z or Xiaomi Redmi K20 Pro. The looks and hardware of the G8s ThinQ are somewhat out of date, and you don't get things like very quick charging, an HDR or high refresh rate display, in-display fingerprint sensor, or notchless design. If you're the type of person who loves discovering and playing with lots of little features, the LG G8s ThinQ will keep you busy for quite a long time. Despite its downsides, it does have really good cameras, especially for the price, so if that's your main concern, this wouldn't be a bad phone to buy. On the other hand, if you're looking for gaming-grade performance, a great display, good battery life, and cutting-edge design, you're not going to be very happy with this phone and you should look elsewhere. Thanks for watching. That was our review of the new LG G8s ThinQ. For more reviews and videos like this, do visit us at gadgets360.com.